Probably better. Hello, we're back. As you can see, we actually dismantled like the entire stream setup, so that's why there's been a little bit of weirdness. I had to make sure it was all working. That was for the holiday party, yeah. Anyway, welcome to our bi-weekly dev stream. My name is Matt. This is HB, and next to him is Mark. We do this every 2 weeks on Tuesday, and we talk about upcoming features and cool stuff and community stuff and answer questions. We don't ask questions ever. So for there's probably a lot of new players, so we kind of just want to, introduce you guys to us. So Mark, what do you do?
I lead the project. I do a little bit of programming, and I guess I try to keep things together around here.
That's fair. Just herding cats.
I talk to people on Discord. I answer technical support emails sometimes. I don't know. It's a real long list, but yeah, I hope that gives somewhat of a picture of things I do.
Yeah, he's Clapfoot Logi. And then HP. What do you?
I do all the rigging and animation of the project. I do part of the technical art of it, like implementation of things in the engine. Some UI. I do some UI programming. Not much nowadays. And now I'm doing a little bit more game design as well. What else? Do I do anything else?
A little bit of project management.
Project man.
A little bit of that stuff. What is project management?
Who knows?
What is project management?
What about you, Matt?
I do a bunch of stuff. I write some of the lore for the game. I do level design, effects, sounds. I guess AV.
I guess that counts. Yeah,
and a whole bunch of other stuff. We all wear a lot of hats. That's the sort of the lesson that you should learn here. Is no one person does one thing, and that's really important. But yeah, I mean, without getting too deep into it yet, Mark, how's the holidays? Foxhole, since we last talked, some things have happened.
Yeah,
so.
It was the last update, which was supposed to be the biggest update in Foxhole history, turned out to be the biggest update in Foxhole history, and a lot more people came back to the game. A lot of new people came to play Foxhole for the very first time, and we pretty much got more players than we were ready for, and that we predicted we would get. We actually had this. We had like an estimate, and we made sure that we were able to comfortably support a lot more than that estimate. But the number of people that showed up ended up shattering all of our expectations. So it's safe to say that update 20 was very successful, too successful almost, if there is a thing. It was great. It was great for the most part. There were obviously a bunch of like pain points and a bunch of seams that showed in the game when more players than we expect try to come in, especially since World Conquest. This is probably like the most amount of players we've had in any sort of like stable capacity since we originally launched World Conquest mode back in February. And yeah, it was a lot to manage, but it was exciting. It was both exciting for what it was, and it was really exciting for what it could be in the future, right? Like just the thought of all the things that could be happening when there's just that many players playing the game, and the thing that I saw from it was that even though we've gone so far, there's still so much more that we can do, and there's still like the war can be so much bigger. There can be so many more like narratives, and there could just be so many more things happening, right? At the same time. So it was really exciting. It was stressful, but it was really exciting.
Yeah, I think that the whole process of like the lead up to update 20, and because we've been working on update 20 for, I think has been the longest update cycle for us as well, in which like we usually are working on like updates that are coming, like not necessarily just the next one, but also the one after and the one after. But the update 20, I think, had the most elements that had been in the works for the longest time in the project.
Yeah.
So like the whole process of like starting so long ago and then culminating in one big update that was very successful, as you said, and had a lot of players, and a lot of players were able to put their hands on some fun new toys. I think that was very gratifying.
Yeah.
For us as a team.
Yeah, it's a very good point. The earliest planning for update 20 was all the way back in like spring.
Yeah.
When we first started. When Matt and myself were actually going through the concepting phase for like the world revamp. It's funny to look back at last year. It was a big transition year for us, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we really had to go through a lot of pain last year. Last year at this time, World Conquest wasn't even out.
I know, right?
And One World wasn't even out, and we came back from the holidays in this huge rush to try to get that out the door, because we knew there was this fear in the studio, at least for me, that if we didn't do it as soon as possible, we might never do it, and we might fail at the goal that we set out at the beginning for Foxhole to be, this massive multiplayer game and not just a server-based game, right? And then that led to a lot of pain throughout last year. But it feels so good to have all that done, and we can move on to like some really, really cool stuff this year. So,
yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be a nice year.
Yeah,
and I think also it proves that sometimes like longer term planning can like pay off.
absolutely.
I mean, I think
it can fail miserably.
It can fail miserably.
But
it's true. Particularly in game design, in which people can. It's so easy, for instance, to scope creep and things, and or not even that. Even sometimes it's not even the fault of the studio with like poor management or anything like that. Sometimes shit just happens, and because you took so long to get there, you kind of lost the train on that one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's a balance that you have to take into like not taking too long, and also not like leaving enough time to actually accomplish something big enough.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. I mean, with all that said, let's move on to our Devstream and start with the community highlights, snippets.
Yes.
Take it away, HB.
So for anybody that doesn't know, community highlights is a blog post that happens usually a couple of days after the Devstream. It's where all the things that the community created, that like we saw you make, get gathered together in one location, one blog post. KFC is the one that deals with that. He's the one that edits it. And it's really interesting. You get to see a lot of videos, a lot of stories, a bunch of illustrations and animations and things. Usually things that are happening at that particular moment in the community. So this one is going to be extra special. So it's going to be community highlights, I think 59 or something like that. It's like a really crazy big number. And it's going to be really cool, because what's happening is that we had the Christmas break with a lot of new players. So there's really a lot of content. So for instance, this one from Star Wars, it's a really cool. It's just like a 3D rendition of the Wardens making their plan. It's just a neat like project,
Do you know what this reminds me of? Hitman Go.
Oh yeah,
the mobile game. It looks almost like identical. It's really cool.
It's because of the bald guy.
And also like kind of the blank faces and sort of the hard edged, like clean, kind of shiny models.
That's made by the same as like the Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Where it's like the very clean, like faceted.
Yeah.
Not faceted, but the very clean look, right?
Yeah.
That
would be really cool to see a Hitman game in a Foxhole.
Foxhole Go.
Like we always talk about spies and stuff like that. People like just going assassination style. That would be really sweet.
That would be. What program was this made in?
I don't know actually. I didn't have much information because like KFC was completely swamped with the amount of submissions.
Yes.
There was like so many. So I actually didn't get to see much of the information for this one. I'm not sure. what software this was made on. It's really cool though. Next one is like two pretty cool things. One, the one on the left is a 3D printed tank, Warden tank that Hans and Klaus made. One, I think Hans did the modeling of it, because this is not our model. Like he took the images that he had, like that we had in Sketchfab, and he modeled it himself, so that it was ready to be printed, and then Klaus painted it. I think that's what the division. It might be vice versa. I don't know if. But it's really sweet. It's a really neat model. Like,
yeah, I saw some of this on the Trench Talk stream, and it was really cool. Is this the only one, or was there more?
What do you mean? The only picture?
The only model so far from.
So far as I know from him, is the only one.
Yeah.
I know that there are actually. I saw some people working on, I think, on a colonial tank. I saw some people working, and if you guys go check the community highlights, that's gonna be coming up in a couple of days. You might see, like, I think it was a failed experiment. I just saw a picture of it, like a broken. Unfortunately, 3D prints, particularly for printing at home, it's very easy for things to go wrong on big prints like this. So I think that's what happened to the colonial one. It's really cool though. And on the right side of the screen, these are just some posters that Superior made. And again, really well done. I think he's using, of course, he's using a different game and everything.
Yeah.
But it's just a neat composition, you know. That top colonial poster down in the top right corner, I truly enjoyed. I think it's really cool, really well done.
Do we know what game that is? It's like Brothers in Arms, or
it looks like it, but
maybe Call of Duty. I don't know.
Is it from a game?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'm
pretty sure it is. Again, unfortunately, I had very little information this time, so I apologize for that. Oh yeah, and last but not least, we're seeing more and more pixel art done by a lot of people. So Monica did all these 4 pixel arts on the left, both the colonial and the Warden tank and the 2 soldiers. And then Woodwood did also a colonial female soldier.
It looks like the same character. Is there some character that this is all based on?
Well, Woodwood has a braid.
What?
I mean, so here's the thing. I know that some people have created like their own lore on their own soldiers.
Yes.
Remember, who was it that did like the elf, the colonial elves? I'm trying to remember.
Warden elves?
Huh? Warden elf? No, I think one was a colonial, the other one was a warden one. So I know that some people do share characters, right? I don't think these ones are in this case, or it might be, and I'm wrong. I know that both 2 on the bottom left are different characters. They wouldn't have the same eye color for sure.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. I always like the pixel art, even though I'm usually not a big fan of pixel art, but I'm really biased, obviously.
When we discover Foxhole
pixel art, because it captures the game from like a different perspective, and it always it's always really cool.
So the last thing that I wanted to show, before the development update, is that first is that Commander NG, a long time ago, he made some Foxhole miniatures based on Warhammer.
Yes.
He made them and painted them, and he actually sent it to us, and I have them here. I don't know if you guys can see.
I didn't even know about this. This is all news to me.
It's really cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah. It was like.
So first of all, I'll see if I can put them as close as possible.
It's really neat.
Yeah.
Can you get even closer than that?
Oh, I can try. I don't want to.
Can you go around the side?
Oh, that's cool.
So it'll focus.
Yeah.
It's still focusing on me.
Yeah, well.
This one.
Do
the hand thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
These ones are really cool. These ones are. This one is actually me as a Marine, and this one I think is Julian as a colonial as well, Marine. So he actually asks us for like colors and stuff like that, and the symbols that we have.
That one is Julian? How's it Julian?
I think it is. I don't remember.
How is it, Julian? But
In my case, it's easy to see from the beard that I used to have the beard like this.
Yeah.
But the coolest thing, in my opinion, besides these two, is
even cooler than those two. Yeah. I didn't know that was going to be a thing.
These two. So there's the Warden banner that he made, and a fully customized colonial soldier. I know it's hard to see. It's hard for me to as well.
Yeah, it was really awesome to like receive this in the mail, and it's
really
cool. Like when we got the package and we opened it, everyone at the office was like really excited about it.
I didn't even know these were. I didn't know this was a thing because I wasn't here for the few days last week.
So yeah, it was really insane. Like having because he had sent pictures before, but like getting them, it was so nice. Such a nice gesture. We really appreciate the gesture, and we really appreciate every time that you guys submit any art. It's really humbling to see everybody doing that and taking our game and like taking it in different directions.
It's so crazy because like even after like 2 years plus, right?
Yeah.
It still shocks me to see some of that stuff. Like seeing the art that we saw today, seeing like the miniatures. It's still, it still means a lot. I don't think I've ever gone to a point where I'm like,
whatever.
Like, it's just more stuff. We still continue to like post things on our Discord
internally,
and everyone gets really excited and they're like, wow, this is really cool. So yeah, all this stuff, like truly means a lot to us.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, you'd think like after getting the like 1,000th piece of art or something, it might have like less of an impact, but every time it's like really like humbling.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. So you guys if you guys want to see a lot of the art that is being created, if you guys want to create something, check out the community highlights blog post that is gonna happen in the next couple of days. It's usually happening a little bit later on Thursdays. Most days is on Thursdays. This time though, there's so many things. Like this was literally just like a small fraction that KFC told me that he might even have missed some stuff. So if you don't see your submission that you did on the past 3 weeks, like during the Christmas break and holiday break, send him a message. Because there was so much stuff that we might have missed it, so he can repost it so he can double check. It's really, really cool. I think you guys are gonna have a blast checking it out.
Cool.
All right, now for the meat and bones.
Yes,
meat and bones.
Meat and bones. Is that even
the actual update?
Anyway, the meat on the bone.
I think
let's move on.
Yeah.
So back to the grind. We got back to the office mid last week. It was still quiet. Half the office was still on vacation, but we are ramping up. So we don't have like too many reveals for this stream, but we do want to talk about where we want to take the game this year and a little bit of a preview of some of the stuff that we are working on that is ready to show. So let's just get right into it. I wanted to talk about the goals in this upcoming year, and I touched upon this in the blog last week, but I just wanted to spend a bit of time on this. I think one of the biggest things that we want to do right now is just to make sure that we realize the actual scale that we thought of at the beginning of the project. We were always struggling last year in getting World Conquest up and running, in fixing the couple of really glaring issues that were there with both in the game design and some of like technology that we're using. We're basically solving a lot of these problems, and at the end of the year we were really figuring out how to properly build the world, right? Because we knew some of the principles that the world was being built on was very old, and we kind of needed to build the blueprint or the foundation, right? Of how we were going to build the world. So last year was a lot of like building the team, figuring out how to do things, and I think now we're ready to sort of like take all that and try to realize like some of the scale. Now we might not be able to do this like, well, I know we're not going to be able to do this like all at once, because obviously it's going to be a lot of work, but it's also like we're not going to be seeing the same number of players now as we did over the holidays. Holidays is usually like the peak. You know, there's a giant player spike during the holidays, and then things tend to like normalize out as we go back to school. Everyone goes back to school. Everybody goes back to work. But we do think the game has still gotten larger, even though we feel like the population is going to normalize, and we want to do a build up now for the world, so that when we get back up to these really high numbers, that we will be ready, that the world will be ready for that. And also, we think that in the time in between, it's also interesting to have a larger world in general, because that way we'll be able to make each war much more interesting. So the wars don't necessarily always have to take place in the same area. And that kind of leads me to like, well, actually first to talk a little bit more about that first goal there, the large scale wars. Beyond just trying to get more players in and beyond just having a larger world, we want to make sure that a lot of the strategies that are being, that you can use, don't just apply to like your single region. And we want to start like realizing larger scale type of strategies, things like being in control of important resources at one side of the world, and having that like have an impact on the rest of the world, rather than it just being this sort of like real like samey type of like grind that kind of like tends to occur. And that brings up to that second point there. Right now, wars are great because we finally, after a lot of hard work, reached the point where wars are lasting very long. We're able to have lots of players in the same war, but the wars, in a lot of ways, they play out very similarly each time. I mean, I'm kind of like underselling what we've done, because that's not exactly true. Like a lot of different stuff happens, but in terms of where we want to go, like our kind of like benchmark of like what a war should be like, should have a lot more like variation than happens right now, and we kind of want to break up the linear narrative that tends to like play out every time. So we want to make sure, and we also want to make sure that players are in charge of that narrative, so they're able to like perhaps go to one side of the world, do some sort of effort, some sort of like build up, and that have more of a lasting effect on the war in general, and you being able to, as a large group of players, be able to do something different, where a couple of wars later, you'll be able to look back and say, hey, do you remember that war where all this cool stuff happened that didn't feel the same as all the other wars? Like that's basically what the kind of thing that we want to see happen this year. And that third goal there, with the richer strategic game, Matt, if you want to switch back for a second, there's still a lot of things we want to do with the intelligence game. We feel like the intelligence game is still relatively shallow in comparison to what it could be, and by that I mean like utilization of like watchtowers and like radio networks and like communication centers. We want that to play a larger role, basically like play a larger role in the war. The deeper logistics, that's another area where we want to see, we feel like even though we did put a good effort into making logistics better last year, and I think we did make some progress, we still definitely feel like that's an area of the game that still needs a lot of love. and not only do we want to make it better, but we want it to also like extend to like a larger scale, so that resources and logistics matter not only in your own region and maybe the region like beside it, but there's these like strategic goals that kind of span the world, right? Like maybe you're in control if you want to starve out like the enemy's like fuel economy. You can try to dominate like a certain side of the world, and even if you're losing, you can do something like that to try to make a comeback, or you know, things that are more interesting rather than just being the same type of like push every time, right? Expanded combat options. This is like the meat and potatoes of the game. So you know, you can always expect something there, like new toys to play with, new like vehicles, things like that. And this is sort of what like we want to be doing this year. It's more going back to like the fundamentals, right? Now that we've sort of like solved these problems, these large problems, we want to go back to the fundamentals and make sure that that we are still making the game that we set out to make 2.5 years ago. Right? So that's sort of the goals.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good.
Cool.
Let's see. Update 021. The next update. Yeah, it's crazy because it's the last update was so big that's like, how do you talk about the next update? Right? But this update won't be as big, definitely.
We'll just skip 21, go straight for 22.
Hell, let's just go straight for 023.
Do the Windows 10 thing.
Yeah.
just do Windows 10. No, this 021. So the next couple of updates is going to be sort of like building on top of 020, rather than sort of like reinventing something like huge. We're going to take the base that we built in the last update and try to like expand on some of that in the next few updates. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to be improving the connectedness of the other regions in the world, right? So we have these island regions, we have the other skirmish regions, and we want them to have a more significant role. So if you're playing on all these islands, it matters in some ways, and maybe in some ways it matters even more, right? And that's something that we're going to be looking to do. The island regions, we're going to be making sure that they're all connected. They're all connected to the mainland, so that the work that you're doing in those regions, you're able to use it to have an impact on the rest of the world, as opposed to just in your local region. The upgrade part, advanced mining, that's something that we're going to be experimenting with. So this is not necessarily a long-term thing, but it's some experimental steps towards making sure that there is good strategic value to be fighting on the islands, as an example. And because all the islands will be connected to the mainland, you'll be able to take any of the upgrade parts that are earned in the advanced mining facilities, which will be on the scrap mines, right? Just to provide some of the context there, you'll be able to take those upgrade parts and you'll be able to ship them back over to the mainland, right? So this is sort of just these small little experiments that we're going to be doing now in the near future, just to see how we can tie in these regions, right? Another thing that we're going to work on is a lot of a bunch of like maintenance work. So that means I'm just gonna.
It's the not fun part.
It's the not fun but very important stuff. So some quality of life features. We know that it was heavily requested that the chat window sees some quality of life, because it can be very active when there's a lot of players. So we're adding the capability of being able to minimize that window. Character visibility indicator, so sometimes it's kind of hard to see when you're actually visible and when you're not. So the top left corner of the HUD is going to have a little icon beside the encumbrance icon that will show whether you're actually hidden or not, so you won't ever think you are and you're not, and you're shot, which is not good. server optimization. So this is a big one. We started working on a larger effort to try to optimize our server so that we can support more players and provide a smoother gameplay experience. And that started about a month ago. And then we went off to the holidays, and we are continuing on that effort. I don't think we're going to see the full fruits of this effort in this next update, but we might start seeing a few things in there. So hopefully the experience will be a little bit smoother and lower latency, and we'll see. The long-term goal there is to try to support even more players in the same region, but we're gonna have to wait and see how far we get there. And obviously fixing bugs, bunch of bugs were logged over the holidays, and we're going to be trying to knock off as many of those as we can for the next update. And besides that, there is going to be more. And I wanted to talk about some of that more, but it's not ready yet, and I don't want to talk about things that we're not going to do. But
shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, so stay tuned for more. This is not the only thing that is coming to 021. There is going to be more, and some of that stuff, if it works out, I think will be pretty cool. So that's all I got to say about that for now.
Cool.
And I'm gonna hand over the next part to you, Matt, if you're ready for that.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Slide or?
Yeah. You can go to the slide. So do you guys remember we had some old concept art? Everybody's like, bring back the old concepts. When's that stuff gonna be in the game? Blah 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 blah. Now's the time.
What?
So before you get your hopes up and thinking that you're probably going to be able to drive this thing, I just want to temper your expectations a little bit. But we're doing these things called the Relics of the Old War. This is going to be considered one of the larger ones. If that's an understatement.
Larger ones.
So something that's in the game that would be considered that already, but maybe in an unfinished form, is the wall in Westgate. So this particular, relic tank, I guess, is supposed to sort of mirror Westgate. And are we talking about this in more detail, Mark? This particular thing?
I think it'll be good to talk about the larger effort in terms of what we're going to be doing
with the lore stuff. Okay.
Yeah. The lore expansion effort.
So with that being said, we are going to be doing more stuff with lore in terms of integrating it into the game a little bit more physically, as opposed to you're still going to get a lot of what is already in the game. There's 100 plus like lore snippets in the game now as is, and there's going to be more and more of that. But we're also going to be integrating it into the game in a more physical way. So there'll be more unique things in the world that tell the story of the history of the world, and not so much like the present of the world, but literally what brought us to the point where this war is taking place. And so those will be things like dilapidated ruins, crashed things, like whether it's an old boat or something, down to up to these giant sort of behemoth tanks. These aren't official terms that I'm saying right now. We haven't sort of settled on that. I just want, it's not called a behemoth tank.
It's official, man.
Behemoth just means big.
Behemoth tank coming in 022.
But I have to choose my words carefully because not everything is all settled.
Driving that thing.
Well, the behemoth tank.
All the way down to tiny trinkets that hopefully we can get a little bit more detail on, so that you can see sort of how people lived in this world a little bit more closely. And so I think it's just sort of enriching the world, I guess, is the best way to summarize it, with more things than just here are some houses and here are some text lines.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's really exciting for me because from the beginning of the project, Matt, it wasn't, the only goal was not to make this massive multiplayer war game, but we wanted the world to feel like a real world. It wasn't just a generic generic like war game world, right?
Yeah.
By real world, you don't mean World War II, World War One. You mean
I mean
something that is a realistic world for our game.
Exactly. That feels really like immersive. That feels like it had a real history, and we didn't spend too much time on this like over the last long while. So I'm so excited for us to be getting back into this after such a long time.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Like the forces in Foxhole have been at war for so long, and it's hard to communicate that without things like this to show you how much they have sacrificed and put into it and lost and come back around to without seeing some of the bigger picture. And I think this stuff will really help to do that. And I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah, I think on the next blog we might, I can't promise it, but it's possible on the next blog we might see some more cool things with regards to this. So
Adam starts really panicking suddenly.
I gotta make up a bunch of stuff for the next blog now. Cool. So I guess that wraps up the development update.
Yeah.
And
so
move on to
awesome. Okay, so now we're going to be doing a Q&A. So if you haven't been here before, now is the time. If you want to ask us a burning question, we may or may not answer it, but you have a better chance right now in order to get it answered. I will be asking questions from the chat, and hopefully you'll get the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah, also if it's your first time, you might want to check the frequently asked questions. Just saying, there's a lot of things that we do answer there that are like the most burning questions.
like
if
artillery towing
or wheelbarrows.
For El Paco asks, are there any plans to enable players to hide specific chat channels entirely, like local or whatever?
Hide from...
Just hide them so that you don't see them.
Do you want to answer that, HP?
Yeah, we originally, when we were doing the chat revamp, like originally when we were redoing the UI, part of it was a whole chat revamp. I think there was, you guys already seen some concepts about in regards to that. I don't know, a few months ago.
Yeah.
Due to development time, we were not able to put it in or anything like that. We were not able to move it forward. But yeah, there are some concepts of you having more control about what you see and how you deal with your own chat. So it's a little bit more catered toward what is your play style. There's concept for that. I don't know if we're gonna have a chance to continue on that one, but yeah, there are.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff that you were talking about, HB, we'll probably try to sprinkle in some of that functionality here or there, much like the minimization.
Yeah. Which was also a concept from that part. So it's most likely that not all, but like several of those features, if they end up in the game, they're not going to end up in a whole, like in one update. They're going to come like in staggered in several updates, because that's just development. But yeah, the answer is good chance.
Commissar 1020 asks, do you think we may ever see a Foxhole novel that goes deeper into the story and the lore of the world? I would personally love to buy and read one.
You are a writer, so are we gonna see a Foxhole novel?
Hey, if I'm paid to do it, I'll do it.
Hey, I would love to read a Foxhole novel. Awesome.
I don't know, guys. Are we gonna see a Foxhole novel? We already had a Bible. We already had so many things. It's about time.
That'd be cool. I've got a lot of ideas about what that would be, but I have a feeling like my ideas of what it is probably not the answers that people are like looking for. So are
we gonna Star Wars this? So we asked several different writers to write under the same universe.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I think like a lot of people are like, are we gonna finally find out all these answers? And like with like the new lore stuff, I've seen some questions. So let's just do this, like answering a couple questions. Like the answer is probably like not in the way you are thinking. There's a real sort of like balance to that we're trying to maintain. We don't want to just midichlorian the game, and I think it's a very tough balance. And I think right now the way that we've been approaching things has been working really well, and I think we're going to continue to do that, just in different like creative ways. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, the thing I was gonna say was there's a specific reason why we like to do things this way, and it's not because we're just trying to be like mysterious just for the sake of it. It's because from the very beginning, we wanted it to feel like it was a real history, and not only just the history, but more of like an ancient history. That was one of our very first like conversations about the world map. And in ancient history, you don't have all the fine little
details of what happened.
Details about specifically this. There was this thing and that thing. You read about these specific people, but you don't ever get the full picture. And not only that, but history is just like a bunch of perspectives. It's not necessarily everything is completely like factual. Like the whole role of a historian is to try to
parse that information,
and figure it out. And in the same way, we want players to be like the historians, right?
Yeah.
Like they have to gather all the information and try to figure it out. So it will never be like, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, right?
Yeah, and I think you put it right. Like history is written by the victor, and this war hasn't been won yet.
Yes.
So,
And yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So we could talk about this for a very long time, but I do think it's important to know. I think it's important to know that, just so that there are expectations. Like I'm not going to tell you like Callahan's life history. I guess that's good enough.
Yep.
I want to know about Callahan's life history.
Tell you in secret.
So Dat Nika asks, can we please get error code logs for technical chat?
For technical chat.
In regards to what?
They are looking for them to help users with VoIP issues. Maybe you have more expertise on this. I'm not too sure.
Right. I don't know exactly what that question means. I'm assuming that it's directed towards knowing what the error codes mean when we get the voice chat error codes. And in that case,
those are Vivox codes, right?
Yes. So we can probably get some of that information out there to help with the voice issues. So let me follow up on that one. I think I need more information, and then I think I need to follow up.
Okay,
so
DM Mark.
You can DM me, Markfoot.
Human Straw asks, will there ever be a grace period before others are allowed to put your crates into the stockpile? Hard work getting stolen drops morale.
Oh, like placing things into the stockpile and then someone else being able to. So that's a really great question. This is probably not going to be what you want to hear, but we purposely made the game in such a way that in very few cases do we want players to have like a sense of ownership, and that does happen in a couple of places. So I won't say we follow that rule 100%, but as much as possible, especially for the majority of very like common items, we want everything to be shared. That's why you can't make a rifle. You have to make a crate of rifles. That way that you never feel like I'm buying this rifle for myself, right? Mm-hmm. There isn't like a rifle shop as you would see in a bunch of other games. Rather, you have to, the person who's using the rifle in many cases is not the same person that is making it. But if there is an area of the game where you feel you feel compelled to make something for yourself, and you feel like someone else stole it, then that's probably something that we'd want to know about, so we can figure out why you feel that way. Because we're definitely not just like, oh, you should share everything and that's that. Like we rather want people to try to share things. So if you don't feel like you want to in a particular case, then that's something that we would want to know more.
We want to incentivize. Right? We don't want to restrict people in that way. Like, oh, you are. There's no way around it.
That's why most of the blueprints, come in quantities of 3. So if you make a blueprint for a light tank, three blue. It produces
two more. Let's put it that way.
It produces two more, so you can't drive 3 tanks at once, right? Now with things like the battle tank is where we kind of strayed a bit from that, and.
But on the other hand, that tank requires more than one person to drive it as well. So it balances itself in a way.
Exactly. You literally cannot operate it on your own.
Yeah.
It's impossible, right? I need to try.
I mean, you can drive around and that's it.
Yeah. But these are things we're constantly looking at. So, please let us know.
Yeah.
Ilos Zekmenolozek asks, will Great March and Reaching Trail be connected to the mainland as well?
That's an excellent question. We have some really cool stuff that we're thinking about on how to title things to the mainland, to the rest of the mainland, rather. And it goes beyond. Some of this stuff is still work in progress, so I don't want to talk too much about it. But it goes beyond just trying to attach those things to the world. We really want. One of our goals is that we want the world, the way that the war plays out right now, it feels like 3 columns plus these extra regions that are tacked on. But if you think about like World War II on the Western Front, it wasn't like 3 columns, right? There was like different fronts in different places, and it didn't feel like it didn't necessarily feel like a grid. It felt much more like arbitrary where the front line was, and that's kind of like, it'll never be exactly that because of the restrictions we have on like our current restrictions that we have on how you travel between the regions. But we want the game to feel more like organic rather than it being this like back and forth thing on the grid. We want it to, we want players to be able to maybe go like sideways. Not just north-south, but east-west. We want the islands to feel like they hold strategic value to the whole war. And so the answer to that is yes, they're going to be connected, but it's not just going to be that. It's going to be a lot more than that. And I can't wait to share some of that stuff with you guys once it's ready. It's not quite ready, but I can't wait.
Because there are a lot of new players, and this question has come up a lot over the course of the stream. I want to ask it. So this comes from a lot of people, so I'm not going to give anybody credit. Are there plans to make a seamless world?
Seamless?
Are there plans to make a seamless world?
So this is a tough question. So I think in any kind of foreseeable future on Foxhole, we're going to stick with the technology that we have, right? Which means that you're going to travel between the regions. Maybe we'll do things to make that not as painful. We'll probably try to support more players inside the region, right? So that's sort of like the direct answer. But we are working on things in the background that will like allow things like a fully seamless world to happen in the future, in some capacity, for something that we work on. It's not so much of a like, it's more of like a studio goal. We really want to solve this problem at some point in the future, because there's obviously a limitation there that is not great, but that's a longer goal, and I wouldn't like in the next half year or something like that. I wouldn't, or even a bit longer than that. I wouldn't expect Foxhole to like suddenly become like a seamless world. Hope that helps.
And I think it's worth mentioning that like we want to, if we were to do something like that, we don't want to make it fake.
Yeah,
and that's really disappointing if it's like you can see the border, so like that you can cross and then you really can't.
So there are a lot of games out there right now that give you like the illusion that it's like seamless, but if you tried to shoot someone on the other side, it just wouldn't work. like we've taken a look at like a lot of the games that are trying to do this, and some
the
of them
exactly,
and some of them, you know, they're always like, oh, a seamless world with like, you know, thousands of players and things like that, and then you're like, oh, this is awesome.
That's exactly what we need.
This is exactly what we want to do. And then we go into that technology or that game, and it's like, wait a minute, this is not seamless. This is, sure, you walk from one end to the other, and it appears like you're walking through, but you'll never have like players on both sides of that seam like shooting at each other and it all working like smoothly. And if you have seen that, please let me know. Like with, mind you, and I'm talking about like a game with like, you know, something like 1,000 players, all in the same place, being able to like walk around anywhere without any limitations of any sort.
For a reference, 100 players in the same map is too small for what we want.
Because we already do that.
We already do that.
Yeah. That's we bounce around like 150 plus minus a bit in the same region. We want that to be higher.
To me, I think having them distinctly separate right now is the lesser of two evils, in my opinion, because at least it's clear.
For now, like of course we're going to try to always push the boundaries of what technology can do, and we're always researching that as well. Don't think for a moment that we're complacent on that front, because I don't think that's one of the fronts that we are least complacent. Yeah, like we really do like look into how can, because that's one of the main not only goals of the game, but also of the company itself, is to have these gigantic battles, like with real thousands of people fighting together, in which like what one guy is doing in the one corner of the map, it's of the world, it can affect seamlessly what the guy does in the other corner. So we really do look into this.
Absolutely.
And if you have any news information, like send our way. Who knows?
And there's another thing too. It's also one thing to get 1,000 players or even thousands into one world seamless, but show me a game that can put 1,000 people all in one place,
running area, interacting,
actually running smoothly, right, without without any problems, and I'd be excited. I'm really excited to see that. But that's the kind of stuff that we're working on in the background. We're working on more things than just this one thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mage of Empires asks, are you happy with the mechanics of combat, specifically needing to always angle your screen so that where you're aiming is always towards the corner of your monitor in order to get the maximum range?
Yeah, it's
let me just say, amazing name, first of all.
I was going to say that, but I was like,
what's the name?
Mage of Empires.
Oh, that's awesome. That's been that's been a bit of a limitation of our game for
quite a long time,
and we took some steps to make it a little bit better with the camera zoom out that happened in 020, and we still think there's more things that we can do. So you know, it's not over there, but we'll see, right? It's a valid concern. I think it's a valid question and a valid concern.
So we're not 100% content with that. No.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask one more question. Will we ever see? This comes from ForgerCon. Will we ever see local offline version for players like AI, Warden, and Colonials?
No.
I wanted to ask that question again, just because. So to that point, if you are new, I recommend you check out the FAQ because a lot of these will be answered.
And it's not a no, like because we're like we're just being like jerks about it. It's a no because we want to make sure that like all of our energy, like we're not a huge team with like 100 people or something. We're actually only like 14 people, and we want to make sure that all of our mental energy is being put into like this kind of one thing that we can do extremely well, as opposed to like just doing all this. So putting a single player mode would completely take up like a bunch of like resources on the team, right? So
think about it this way: we are 14 people right now, which is like the largest our studio has ever been, right?
Oh yeah, when we launched Foxhole, it was like 8 people.
Exactly, and imagine that we want to manage a game with hundreds and hundreds of AI. If you guys ever played Fortified, you remember the AI characters that were there.
Yeah.
It's not a simple
the AI
thing.
in Fortified was perfect.
It was perfect, yes. And so it would require us to completely shift the design of the game and planning, because we are such a small studio. It doesn't mean it can't be done, or we wouldn't enjoy doing it if we had resources.
Remember, AI is like in some studios like an entire team's job.
Yeah.
Like it's not a simple thing. But beyond that, I also think like the game is designed to be played by real people with real people. So like an offline mode wouldn't even make sense. I don't think.
I mean,
not that it's a valid question.
Some people might be interested, but I don't think it's so far removed, at least right now, from the core elements of our and the goals of our game, that it would be really hard for us to find a reason and to find time to do something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's actually one more question that I wanted to ask, and I just lost it. Where did it go? I had it in my head, and I was like, I'll just ask it. That's fine. If you guys have anything,
I have another question. I think there were some people asking me on Discord about localization. Like, oh, when are we gonna see like Korean, Russian, Chinese, and all that? And I think there's already like a couple of buttons that are localized.
Yeah, stuff is really outdated.
Yeah.
I hope to do it at some point. We're definitely going to do it at some point. It's just because things are still changing. We don't want to go through that huge effort yet, but I don't know.
Because I had people asking me, it's like, oh, can I do the translation? And unfortunately, it's not just simple as plopping it in. To some parts of the game it is it's very simple, but to a lot of other things it's not, right? So that's why we don't take work from like just like a player right now that wants to do all the translation. We have I know that, for instance, like in Portuguese, we have people in the Brazilian community that like translated a whole tutorial and stuff like that. But
so Red Donut 2000 asks, will you guys add an actual tutorial instead of a training camp? And like there's a reason I wanted to ask this question, and it's because like if we were to add a tutorial right now at the speed and pace that we're going, we'd have to change it every patch. So it just doesn't make sense right now. I imagine if we do a tutorial, it'll be like one of the last things in the game.
Yeah, I mean, there will reach a point where we start working on things like this, like localization and like the tutorial, and we're just there's still, if this holidays showed us anything, there's still so much other work that has to be done, but it's gonna be there at some point, right? Like, yeah, it
makes sense. It's just what it's just like, even now, like the text in the tutorial I think is out of date, which we keep constantly losing tabs on, so that's one of those things when you're making an early access game and working at the speed we do, so
yeah.
Cool. All right, guys.
Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Welcome to every new player.
Look out for the blog next Tuesday.
Look out for the blog next Tuesday. Look for the community highlights post in a couple of days. If you're new, you might not know that this Devstream is posted later on the week on YouTube as well. And if you're watching this on YouTube for the first time, because you're also a new player, if you want to have questions answered on like live and ask questions, join us on twitch.tv/foxholegame every second Tuesday at 2 p.m. EST. And for everybody else, join our Discord. The link is going to be up here somewhere.
Any final thoughts, Mark?
No, that's it.
All right, everybody.
See you guys.
Stay foxy in 2019.